What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios for week 6 of building the Battle of Jabiim in Lego. I'm really excited for this week because I'm finally at a place where I can take a break from rock work and terrain work and actually start working on the base. I do have all drawn out on a piece of paper, but I need to physically figure out how big the base is going to be, really kind of figure out the scale of the whole thing and where everything's going to go. I'm also going to start working on some of the shipping containers and other structures that are going to be making up this base. All that being said, if you're excited to finally see the actual base start to come together, don't forget to execute Order 66 on that like button. And if you're new watching this channel for the first time, consider subscribing and tapping that little notification bell so you'll be notified as soon as the next video drops. All that being said, it's time for me to get started. I'm going to be kicking off this week with a rare haul. I don't do a lot of hauls in this series just because I have most of the parts. However, there are a couple things that I'm running low on. First off, I've got some more dark tan wedge plates in. I need these for the upper terrain you guys saw in the last update. I've been using those to kind of create different sections and levels on top where the base is going to go. I got some longer wedge plates as well as some shorter ones. I did also get a couple olive green plates. Those are going to be used for some larger olive green like shipping / storage containers for the base. I'm still experimenting with the heads for the Nimbus Commandos. I bought a bunch of random heads here. I've got some regular red ones, some blank orange heads, and then here are a couple more red heads. These ones have just like random face patterns on them. I don't really know what set they go to, but I'll just turn them around and use the back of the head. I did get a couple of heads to try out for Alto Stratus. He's got a very stern, no-nonsense look to him with, a really chiseled jaw and face. So I wanted something that represented that pretty well. I'm having a little bit of a tough time finding what I want, but I did find a couple of options here that I'm excited to try out. Now I want to get your guys' feedback on some of these different heads. So this is what I have currently in my Nimbus Commandos. It's kind of like a yellowish head. This is what it looks like with kind of the darker pumpkin orange. This one kind of matches the torso a little bit, and I don't know how much I like that. And then last we have the plain red head. This matches the torso even more than the orange one, so I don't know if I like that. Here's a picture of what the actual Nimbus Commandos look like, and you can see that their visor, like the visor area, is bright red. So I think this last option may be the one that matches them the best. But let me know down below in the comments which of these options you like the best. Before I get to work on the city, I kind of want to lay out a blueprint or plan for me and you guys of where it's going to go and what it's going to look like. So I stuck another 16 by 16 plate on right here. I'm keeping it at the same height as the existing plates, most of the existing plates around it, because this area is going to house the base, and so I don't want it to be too rough, too up and down. I want it to be relatively flat, because that would make sense for a base area, because you have guys coming and going, vehicles, crates, so it's going to be packed down pretty flat, and then obviously you're going to want to put your base on a relatively flat area. As for the base itself, I don't have a ton of reference material for it. In fact, in this comic book that I've been referencing, there is only a single image of the entire base, and this is what it looks like. So you can see it's fairly small. You've got the main building right here, some kind of shield generator here in the back, and then some tents sprinkling the outside. And then you can see over here we get into some more heavy duty stuff like a large container, shipping container, and then some kind of round silo next to it. Then you've got another round thing up here, and this is the ATTE up by the mouth of the base with some smaller tents and crates sprinkled about, and you can see we've got a little two-legged walker. From that reference material, I was able to put together this little blueprint, so you can see this is going to be my main base with the outer buildings surrounding it. So based off of that, main base is going to go right here, big square with the shield generator jutting out the back right here. And then here on this side, kind of in like a half circle, we're going to have some tents and buildings climbing up in this direction. And then up here, we're going to have that large olive green shipping container with the round circular thing next to it. And then this is going to be like the main common area of the base with my Republic vehicle right here, and then the Separatist forces over here with the Nimbus Commandos. The reason I'm starting on the base already is because I want to try a new technique I used on my previous mock, Uncharted Paths on Naboo, where I had plates at an angle on the mock. So because typically if I were to build, I'd have everything at a 90-degree angle so it can connect on the studs here. but I'd like to try having it at an angle like this so I can create a more realistic shape with the buildings. And if I do that, I'm going to need to have large patches of tile, because you can see right now I couldn't hook it down right here, so I'm going to have to pull these up. So I want to start getting that figured out now so I can kind of build the base as I lay more of the terrain down. And that will also help make these updates more interesting as I'm doing fun little smaller builds. One last thing I want to mention before I get back to work. I bought this shield for Alto Stratus, and I bought it for a couple of reasons. I've been having a tough time trying to figure out what to do for it, because you can see it's gold and it's got like a cross in the center of it. There aren't really a whole lot of Lego shields that look like that, and I wanted to keep it accurate. So you can see this one is a little bit smaller, but it does have that gold border around the outside, and it does have that cross in the center. So while they're not exactly alike, I think this may be the closest match I can find. So what I'm going to do next is start pulling up some of these plates right here and putting tiles down and kind of figuring out where I want to start placing structures and buildings, and figuring out some designs for some of the shipping containers. I wanted to build a container that looked industrial and heavy duty while still being portable. This is something you could see being carried. This is something you could see being carried in a Venator or being dropped off by a Republic attack shuttle. The trick will be making this boring rectangle of a crate into a unique MOC that adds to the story and complements the rest of the base. I'm excited to build the doors and hinges because I know that's where most of the cool techniques and potential will be. The reason I decided to go with larger shipping containers for the MOC is because in one of the few images we get of the actual base, you can see there's a bunch of larger storage containers placed around the MOC, and it kind of makes sense. Shelter Base, which is what I'm building, is kind of like the Republic's first initial foothold on the planet, so it makes sense that it's it's got to be a fairly mobile, fairly new base, so there's going to be a lot of portable and mobile elements to it, which is why I'll also be including some other tents and stuff, but I'll be getting more into that later. Here's the finished shipping container. I feel like I was able to capture the heavy-duty industrial vibe that I was talking about earlier. I've got the tiles right here on the sides to kind of represent corrugated metal or tin like you see on the shipping containers that we use. It's pretty tall and pretty big. You know, I want this to look like it can hold quite a bit of stuff. And while it was a pretty simple, plain design, I added a few techniques and details to try and spice it up a little bit. So I've got these inverted slopes on the top and regular slopes on the bottom to kind of help create this shape in the center and break up the sides and back and make it look less rectangular. And then I already talked about those tiles. And then here on the front we have doors that actually open like this, and you can see inside. There isn't a whole lot of space to store anything on the inside, but that's okay because this is mostly for display. Because this was a transport shipping container, I wanted the doors to be very heavy duty and very thick, so that's why I went with bricks. And then to kind of help bring the front of it to life and add some more detail where I could, I wanted to make some very big hinges, and I followed the rule with Lego where the more parts you use, the better something looks, because I could have just gone with something simple like this, a Lego hinge, and that probably would have done the job okay. But because I used these droid arms, poles, and then these pieces, I don't really know what you want to call those, it really helps make the hinge look a little bit more complex and gives more mobility to the door when opening and closing it. You can see I can position it into multiple different ways now depending on what I want to depict with this container. But that wraps up everything for this week. I'm really pleased to finally have a structure down on the MOC and know where it's going and know where it looks like. All that being said, it's time to hit the outro and wrap up this update and talk about what I'm going to be doing next week. It feels good to finally be working on the base and starting to get it figured out. I want to get more of the terrain down so that I can actually start figuring out how many studs wide and how many studs long some of these larger structures are going to be, especially that main base, which means next week we should see more work on the base and upper terrain. Thank you guys all so much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, anything at all, please leave them down below. I love interacting with you guys there, and I will catch you next time. But until then, happy building.